Thanks for tuning in to more college football talk on the Our-Lads Football Network as we talk Rutgers football for a second time this week. No Ryan Dunleavy. That show has already been posted. We do that earlier in the week, but we promised that we would do these second shows several times during the season as long as things went well, and things are going well. So Richie Schnyderite is back from Rutgers Rivals. Of course, Richie helped us to preview the season, which just seemed like a couple days ago. And we got one more game to go before October, Richie.
It's crazy, man. Thanks for having me again, though, Greg. But I got to ask, what's the deal with Ryan? He doesn't want to join the show with me?
I don't know. It's one of those, I got to split the screen down and, he'd rather have the whole screen to himself. So.
I totally get it. Once he got that cushy job at the Post, that was it.
And he's an alum, so we have to remind people of that. Some people are wondering, where's this guy coming from? But he's an alum, and he also used to cover the Rutgers beat a few years ago. But now he's with the big boys. Now he's with, he's talking more pro football than he is college. I had to kind of talk him into this, not too much, but I suggested the show this year. And I was very happy and pleased that he took it because it was a good decision. And Rutgers fans have found the show. And, I know you could use a little bit of competition yourself. The more competition, the better. And why not join our resources here, especially for a game this big. The Michigan game kicks off the Big Ten schedule, 3-0 in the non-conference. Rutgers really couldn't have drawn it up. I mean, the fans, you could say one thing about the coaches, but as fans, we couldn't have drawn it up any better.
No, I think you just hit the nail on the head right there. Right now, 3-0, heading into the big game against Michigan. I like to call it the litmus test of the season because from here on out, this is going to tell you how good this Rutgers team is or could be, I guess. But overall, the offense has been stagnant at times, of course, but it's also looked good at times. So it's up and down, but then the defense as a whole has been dominant. So that's a very big plus right there. But overall, I think teams or every fan or media member expected this team to be 3-0 heading into this game, and they did just that. They handled their business, and now we're on to Michigan and seeing what happens there.
Yeah, and I think if it wasn't for the blowout last week, though, I think there would have been maybe a little bit of a different feeling coming into this game. I think there's a little bit more hope regarding the outcome. Not necessarily winning, but keeping it close and having a shot late in the game. And I definitely think that's possible. And by the way, I do need to make sure everybody, I got to preface this before we move on, because I was reading some of the message boards and people were talking about how, especially the Michigan guys, about how, Rutgers guys really seem to be kind of, pumped up for this one or a little bit overconfident. Here's the thing. I'm from New Jersey. Okay. I grew up in New Jersey 50 years ago. At that time, Rutgers football was nothing. It was nothing. So you had to root for some other college football team. You had to root for Ohio State, Michigan, USC, UCLA, Alabama, whatever, Penn State. And I went with Michigan. That was my team. That was the one I chose. So once Greg Schiano was hired, it was like I was so stoked. I was like, this is a shot. Hey, make Rutgers my home state team relevant. And ever since, it's been Rutgers, Michigan. And I'm like a 50-50 Rutgers, Michigan fan. So if anybody, and I must say, I'll admit, I'm like 51-49 Rutgers. And that's because I'm from New Jersey. If I was from Michigan, things would be different. But I'm from New Jersey, so I'm loyal to my boys. But the reason I bring this up is because I'm not homerizing anything. I like both of these teams. So I'm probably the best person as far as a Rutgers fan to analyze the Michigan game, because you can't say, oh, he's just saying that because he's a Rutgers fan. I'm a Michigan fan too. So, and if anything, I know Michigan because I go back a long way. I go back to when Jim Harbaugh was playing for Michigan. That's how long I've been following Michigan football. So anyway, let's get back to this because I think, again, I was saying, I do think this is going to be a competitive game. I think it could be competitive, and I think it will be competitive into the fourth quarter. How far and deep into the fourth quarter, I don't know, but I think it will be a competitive football game.
Yeah, I mean, you like I said before, you hit the nail on the head. It's going to be competitive at first, I think. But in the end, this Michigan rushing attack is ridiculous. I think they're averaging 7.4, 7.5 yards per carry as a whole. Blake Corum, their starting tailback, is insane. He's PFF's #1 ranked running back at the moment. Hassan Haskins, their backup, is also very good. He's got 300 yards on the season. Overall, they have the top rushing attack in the nation, and of course, that's Rutgers' downfall in terms of defense. Their rushing defense over the past year hasn't been that good. I guess the numbers are a little skewed this year because they're only giving up 113, 114 yards per game on the ground, but they've also only played Delaware,
and
Syracuse,
it's still 49th in the nation.
So it's kind of concerning. So now when you're going to go against the #1 rushing attack, it's like, this might not be the best matchup at all. This might actually be the worst matchup possible for Rutgers.
And you can throw out, I know Schiano, it's interesting the way Schiano talks about last year's game, because it's almost like he is so truthful about it. It's like what you're hearing is we had our shot. That was our shot to beat Michigan. We're not as good as Michigan, and we had our chance and we blew it. So now the test is going to be that much harder. And it's almost, you could tell that he doesn't really expect to win either. He knows where Michigan's program is compared to Rutgers' program. He's not going to say that, but I think that's the closest he's going to get to kind of admitting that, this is just not going to be like, in other words, Rutgers fans, don't think what happened last year has anything to do with what's going to happen this week. It's a completely different football team that we're going up against.
Yeah. Yeah, on top of that, there was no fans in the stadium, so it's a weird vibe when game last year. The whole season was all kinds of wacky, but there is a big talent gap, and it's pretty obvious. We actually post an article on our site every Thursday. I call it Throwback Thursday, and we just take a look at each team's starters as recruits, and you look at the star rankings alone, and it's like, oh my God, it's like 4-star, 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 5-star, maybe a 3-star, 4-star, 4-star, 4. It's like, oh my, between Ohio State. It's incredible to see the talent gap. And don't get me wrong, Rutgers is starting to bridge that gap a little bit, but it's going to take time. This isn't an overnight rebuild. I think most fans like to think it's like, oh, they got 3 wins last year. This is it. They're rebuilding already. It's like, no, you got to slow down. It's a very long process. It's probably a 4 to 5 year rebuild before Greg gets all his guys that he wants.
And before we could actually start thinking about where the program was under Schiano at its pinnacle, meaning top 10 possibilities, actually getting into talk about a playoffs. And again, it's always going to be tough with Michigan, Penn State, and Ohio State in their division. There's no question about that.
Yeah. 100%. I would even put Michigan State in that category now.
You got to watch out for Michigan State. That's why when you look at the schedule, I was talking to Ryan about it the other day. You can't do it because in the beginning of the season you thought, oh, Indiana's going to be tough. We're probably not going to beat them. Now it's like, yeah, we can beat Indiana. Michigan State. Oh yeah, we could beat Michigan State. We beat them last year. Well, not the way they're playing now. So you just can't do it. But I am actually feeling pretty good about the schedule because Northwestern looks like crap. Again, there are, I think, a little bit more winnable games now than I thought when the season began. I'm not going to go, we're going to win here, lose there, win here crap. But overall, I would be disappointed now if Rutgers didn't get to a bowl game.
I think it's going to come really close, and it might actually come down to that Maryland game, the last game of the season, which is like everyone's fear. But like if you just take a quick glance at the schedule, it's Michigan.
All right, so let's say 2 losses.
Probably. Let's say Michigan's a loss, Ohio State's a loss. I'm not optimistic against Michigan State. They look very good. Peyton Thorne at quarterback. Yeah, I mean, it's at home.
And you better win that game. So that might help a little bit. If you lose 2 straight, you better win that game.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I'm not optimistic, though. Peyton Thorne, their quarterback's got, 9 touchdowns, no interceptions this year. He looks – Kenneth Walker. Yeah, he looks really good. Northwestern, that's the one you have to win. But playing at Northwestern's not easy either.
And then at Illinois, back-to-back.
It's very tough. Well, you get the bye week in between, so that should help.
But those 2 games.
So that should help with the Illinois.
Shouldn't we win 2 out of those 3, though? Michigan State, Northwestern, Illinois.
if you want a bowl game, yeah, you need to win 2 out of those 3. Yeah, Illinois is intriguing though because Brandon Peters looks like crap, but Art Sikowski looked good.
He's
so,
gonna, he's gonna play.
I don't know what they do
game.
there.
You know it.
They're gonna have to. It's like a mind game at that point. But yeah, after that, you got to win at least. You would think Northwestern, Illinois, or even like you said, 2 out of 3. So just say hypothetically you're at 5. Wisconsin's probably a loss. Indiana, I thought they were going to be good, but Michael Penix Jr. looks awful. So
right now he looks awful.
Who knows? Yeah, maybe he'll turn it around. Who knows? But Penn State, I hate to say it, it's a loss. Yeah. They're very good this year. I don't know if you watched the Auburn game. Ridiculous.
I mean, I watched both games, and I picked Penn State in both games.
Yeah.
Their defense is awesome.
It was ridiculous, but phenomenal. What do you call it? Maryland, it might come down to that game. That might be 5 or 6, and then if you hit that win, bowl game. Luckily for Rutgers, it's at home. You'll have the home crowd, and if you are fighting for a bowl, I do think you'll have a pretty good crowd on top of that. So, yeah, late November game, probably an old, cold game. Hopefully, you would think like at 3:30, maybe late night matchup. I know fans don't want to hear that because it's going to be really cold, but that'd be a cool old school.
I think that if you really look at it, that Michigan State game is probably the game of the year. Because if they beat Michigan State, I just find it very difficult to believe they're not going to win 2 more games.
Yeah. Now, if they beat Michigan State, I'd be very optimistic. But heck, if they somehow pull something out this week, and then it's like, all right,
that's a different story.
Where can this team go?
We're not even going to go there. That's a different story. I will say this though, and I'm really being honest. I actually believe. And I'm just talking about what I've seen this year in college football from both Michigan and Ohio State. I think the Ohio State game, I think we might have a better chance. I honestly do.
It's a tough call because like they did lose to Oregon and
they did not look good against Tulsa.
I don't think
they did not look very good against Minnesota.
Yeah. I like Trayvon Henderson a lot, but I do think they underrate Master Teague. I think he should be used a ton more in that offense. But regardless, is CJ Stroud the answer? Probably not. So far. But do you rush? What do you do? Do you rush Quinn Ewers? Do you put?
No, they're going to run with Stroud. It's just he's young. Everybody believes that it's like this cycle always with Ohio State, Alabama, all these types of schools. Oh, we'll just keep throwing in these 5-star, 4-star quarterbacks, but that they're not always going to be automatic. And maybe this kid will turn out to be a really good college quarterback in a year or 2, but he looks susceptible now.
That's the question mark that I have is that you have Quinn Ewers, the number 1 quarterback in 2022 who enrolled early like Wimsatt, and it's like he's probably going to push for that job next year if Stroud keeps
Someone will probably transfer, and it'll probably be Stroud.
So Stroud would go somewhere else, and he'd probably dominate somewhere else. So it's like it's a crazy cycle. And then Kyle McCord, the Rutgers legacy recruit, right there too. So, I mean, you say it's interesting. We don't know really what's going to happen over there at all, but I do agree. I do think they have a better chance against Ohio State than they do Michigan. Do I think they win either?
No.
Probably not, but
we could dream.
Yeah, what are you going to do?
That's what it's about.
There you go.
And that's why we never would have.
There's a reason they play.
Yeah, we never would have even thought about. See, that's the thing. That's what's exciting. It's not that we're being delusional about. Oh, we're gonna win this game. Well, it's about just feeling proud that now we actually have a shot to be competitive.
That you compete.
That if maybe there's some turnovers or something crazy happens, we get a call or 2 that go our way. That we could actually be in a game in the 4th quarter with a very good football team.
Yeah, no, there is a shot that happens this weekend or even next weekend.
Okay, I wanted to ask you too about, and we'll get back to the game a little bit, but I wanted to talk to you about a few things going on with Rutgers, and that is, first of all, let's talk about the suspension. First thing you hear before you even read it is you start to get, whoa, what happened? And then you read it. And you're okay. You go back to when you were young, and you go, okay. So they were driving in a car, and they had a paint gun, and they were shooting guys with the paint gun, and nobody pressed charges. So it's probably not as bad as it sounds. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, I mean, but
it's
at the end of the day,
yes,
this is like
I admit
the hot start to the season. Max Melton, whatever you want to call him. He's been dominant. He's been arguably their best cornerback. And when you're having that type of a year, why even risk it? Like, why be stupid? Just stay in your dorm room for the whole season if you have to. Just focus. You're gonna be an NFL player if you keep this up. So why risk it with something stupid? Because if he does keep it up and does keep playing really well over the next couple of years, that's the first thing they're gonna ask you at either the interviews or the combine or whatever, etc. They're gonna be like, oh, what happened here freshman year? Oh, well, I was stupid. I had a paintball gun, started shooting people. Like, come on. We don't know the full police report, or we don't have the full police report yet. I submitted the Oprah request for it, but in terms of what we know so far, it just sounds like two freshmen being dumb, driving around, shooting kids, or I don't even know if it was kids, shooting adults at this point, maybe, with paintball guns. Like,
I
don't know. It was a very questionable
because
thing.
It doesn't appear to be that serious. We could just hope that it's one of those things where, look, things are coming so easily for him. He's so young. Things are going so well. Look at his brother. His brother's about to be a pro second, third, fourth round draft pick. Everything's going great for the Meltons. And then this is what happens. You lose, perspective about you can't, this world doesn't revolve around you. I mean, you have to be mature and you would guess, especially it appears he has a good family background, a good family structure. He's got the older brother, that he'll be fine. That this will be one of those lessons that he will remember for the rest of his career, that he will never put himself in that position again.
Yeah, you'd like to think so. Like you said, he's got a great family. Dad played football at Rutgers. Mom played basketball at Rutgers. Brother's one of the stars at Rutgers currently. He's turning into one of the stars at Rutgers. It's something you just got to, I guess, kind of move on from and just keep going. Just ignore everything that people are saying. Whatever you do not look at social media. Ignore that completely. But don't even tempt yourself. Just you got to look at it, move on, say you made a mistake.
I can imagine what the conversation was probably like. Who do you think picked him up at the? So did he actually got arrested? Right, they got arrested.
So the night, supposedly they did it Monday night. Tuesday morning, they got taken into custody. They're not arrested technically, but they were released on their own recognizance. You would assume the parents probably picked them up, but you never know. I could see Greg walking in there and just ripping them one. What?
Right?
Get over here. We're going to practice.
He's got Schiano. He's got his brother. He's got his dad and his mom.
I didn't even think about his brother. His brother could have ripped him one too. I'm sure they tore.
That's why I feel pretty confident. He's got the perfect support system. So
yeah, so I think he'll be fine. The weird thing is that when we got the statement from Schiano, it just says suspend it.
Yeah,
that's it. It doesn't say indefinitely. It doesn't say how long. It doesn't even say if it's for the game technically. But you would assume he's 100%, 99% sure he's going to miss this game. But who knows? We don't really know how long it's going to be. I'm sure that's. I was talking to who was I talking to? I was talking to my beat writer Chris Nowalski yesterday, and I think that first question after the Michigan game is going to be what happened, how long. It doesn't matter what the Michigan Rutgers score is, unless something crazy happens. But I think that might be the first or second question.
Be interesting, especially if the good thing is if it's a one-game suspension, this is the better game than the Ohio State game. Because, again, it's Michigan's running game that scares you more than anything. Not that they can't throw the ball. We saw that happen last year. But it's still it's a different offense that Rutgers is going up against. So Renee is now the wild card because we haven't heard anything. Do you have any news at all? Is there a possibility that he plays and maybe even starts on Saturday?
I guess the possibility is there. In terms of injury reports, they don't really release them at all during the season because college football, you don't have to technically. So I mean, if he ideally, that's probably I put on the boards yesterday. I have plan 1A and plan 1B. That would be plan 1A is Renee's healthy, he's perfect, he's good to go. Throw him out there. Plan 1B would probably be move Kasson Abram, who's covered mostly slots this year, bump him to the outside. I asked Greg about him on Monday, actually, ironically, right before everything happened. And he said that Abrams stepped up big time this year. He might be a little bit on the smaller side. I think he's 5'8", 5'9"-ish. And I think he's probably listed 5'10", 5'11". But he's probably in the 5'9" range. But Greg said he fights tooth and nail for that ball. Doesn't matter what his size. Yeah, he's been very good. So it's like it's going to be a little bit of a struggle. I guess there's a couple other young guys like Robert Longerbeam, who's number 2 on the depth chart behind Trey Avery, but he's another guy who's around 5'10", 5'11". So it's going to be interesting. Ideally, Renee's healthy, good to go.
That would be great.
Then that's it. End of story. If not, then you have those two options. And you could even slide Avery Young back down to cornerback. And then bump up a safety like a Najee Jones
It looks
type.
like, I mean, Avery's name has been called. See, when Max's name has been called this year, it's been good plays. Or Abraham. When Avery's name has been called this year, it's been a negative mostly. You know, he's been beaten a few times. But I don't know if it's been, look, they ask him to do a whole lot. I'm not criticizing the kid. He's a talented kid. Where do you think the best position is for him?
Probably safety, because he did struggle a little bit at cornerback last year. I don't think he has the speed to keep up with the more twitchy wide receivers. And I think that's like one of his biggest downfalls when it comes to one-on-one coverage. And moving him to safety allows him to do a little bit different. And of course, they're not. I don't think they'll attack the Izzian type, who's a freak athlete back there. Could probably outjump most of the wide receivers in the conference, if not the nation. But so I think that's why you're going to hear Avery Young's name a lot. If they do give up a big pass play, it's probably going to be them trying to attack
Makes
him.
Sense.
But again, it's going to be weird this week because if you don't have Renee, I could see them going after Abram because he's on the smaller side. But again, he'll fight tooth and nail for that ball. He's a New York native out of E-Hall. They teach their DBs really well, as we see in Christian Izzian.
Yeah,
so
Abram's been the one guy that has clearly stuck out in the secondary more than any, almost as much as Melton. Melton's been the number one guy, and then it's been Abram. Meanwhile, as far as the offense is concerned, what is going on with Youngblood? Is it looking like the chances are he may redshirt?
I guess you could redshirt him technically. They don't use a ton of receivers. They kind of have their core 4 to 5, if you want to say it so far, if you look on the snap counts. And that would be obviously the 3 stars in Melton, Jones, and Cruikshank. After that, Isaiah Washington's that tall kind of deep threat they have.
He is.
And then look at Brandon Sanders.
Yes, he's been a godsend.
He's looks good. Yeah, he's got, I think he had 80 yards on Saturday against Delaware or something like that.
Because Washington really hasn't done it.
Yeah, so they don't. No, they don't really rotate a ton of receivers in. And then on top of it, Youngblood, when he first committed, I talked to the Kansas State guys. I always try to talk to the other websites to be like, oh, hey, he transferred in. What do you think of him? The first thing he said is he's explosive on kick returns, explosive on punt returns. In terms of route running and receiver skills, he needs to learn a ton.
Maybe that's why a good redshirt year
going based off
would
that.
Suit him.
Yeah, you would think obviously you could redshirt him, and then kind of figure out like what's Cruikshank going to do? Is it can he leave for NFL? Maybe because of his kick return skills.
Hey, I said it the other day.
But
if
ideally,
Tutu Atwell can get drafted with that body size in the 3rd or 4th round, then I'm sorry, Aaron Cruikshank can get drafted in the mid rounds too, because he's improving his game as a receiver, and he is just super explosive as a returner. I just and he's got the speed. NFL, they're always looking for speed. And that's why they're discounting guys. Oh, Tutu Atwell was 5'6", whatever. I don't care. Get him out there. Yeah, so I think he could leave. I think there's a distinct possibility.
Yeah. Like you said, there's a possibility. But if I'm him, there's a lot of question marks. Number one, if you stay another year, you could probably improve even more as a receiver.
True.
Of course, the obvious thing. Number two, do you want that NCAA kick return record? I think he's 2 or 3 away from tying it. Ideally, you probably think he gets 1 or 2 this year. If he stays another year, it's like, all right, you got a chance to break the NCAA record. Like, do you want to do it? Like, and that might be a selling point for Greg and crew to.
So why do you think Youngblood chose to play here then?
Because he went to Berkeley Prep High School, and there's a bunch of Berkeley Prep guys. Greg Schiano was a volunteer assistant coach there, whatever it was, when his sons were playing there. Back during that little stint between jobs, I think it was either between Tampa and Ohio State or between Ohio State and the Patriots or whatever it was. I forget what timeline it was, but I think that's the biggest reason. Greg still has great connections down there to the coaching staff, They have Mayan Ahanatu, Gavin Rupp at quarterback. There's another one I missed. Austin Dean at linebacker, all from Berkeley Prep. So, I mean, it's kind of turning into Berkeley Prep 2.0.
I don't know. I just get the feeling that the more, if we go another game or two and we just don't see him,
Mhm.
I think it just makes more sense. Unless, of course, there's an injury, which to one guy. We all know there's only one guy that he can jump on and replace, and that's Cruikshank.
Yeah, but I mean, when Cruikshank's playing why move him?
Absolutely.
So the red shirt, I didn't even think about the red shirt. The red shirt might be a possibility. I don't know if he did or not at Kansas State. I would say no if I had to guess, because he did win that 2019 Big 12 Special Team Player of the Year. So I think that was his freshman year, but I'm not 100%
I think there was
sure.
an article. There was I think they posted an article on ng.com about red shirts and stuff. So I didn't really go into detail about it, but I saw there was posted up there. It's behind the paywall, but I pay for it, and I was reading a little of it, but I didn't go into detail. Let's see, the offensive line, because this was something that we were very concerned with, and all Rutgers fans were obviously concerned with it when the season began, and it didn't look all that great the first couple of games. Okay, Delaware looked better, but still.
Yeah.
And they're shifting and they're moving guys all over. So do you believe that they're close to figuring out what the 5 looks like?
I think the 3 solidified ones are pretty obvious. Nick Crimmon at center is not going to move, it doesn't look like, even though he's had his struggles, which has been a little concerning. Other than him, you have Cedrice Palliant at left guard and Reggie Sutton at right guard. Those have been the 3 mainstays for the most part. The weird thing to me is they're rotating in 3 games. They have 3 different sets of starting tackles. So it's like one game it's O'Neal, Bordner. Next game it's O'Neal, Pierce. Then the next game it's Bordner, Pierce. And it's like, whoa, what the heck? Like, you should have had this figured out. Like, what's going on?
I guess we'll find out on Saturday, because this is the first 3 games
we don't really know. Yeah, I mean, you would hope they would found something going now, but O'Neal kind of played backup against Delaware, but he also was very close to out-snapping either Bordner or Pierce. I forget which one it was. So it's like, it's just mix and match trying to find those best 5 that fit together. And then at the end of the day, they have to gel. So I think you kind of have to pick like a starting 5 so these guys can figure out each other, figure out what they're good at, what they're bad at, help each other, one another.
What do you think? It's, if you had to pick the tackle that is as one specific tackle outplayed the rest?
I really like Bordner. I like his intensity a lot. I don't know if he's a better fit at left tackle or right tackle. He's a former defensive tackle that's shifted over to the offensive line last year, and he's just very intense and ferocious in that trench. He's not afraid to, like, honestly punch a defensive lineman right in the chest. Like, he's not afraid to. He's just got that intensity to him. Very mean streak that he has, and that's what I love about offensive linemen. If you don't have that mean streak, and I think that's something they lacked under Chris Ash, you're not going to succeed. So I really like him, but again, I don't know if he's going to be left tackle or right tackle. I see what they like in Holland Pierce because he's 6'7", 330 or something. It's ridiculous. The guys, you can't move him. But again, you can't move him if you're Rutgers either. You can't like pull him or anything. True. Not pull him, but yeah, it's tough. Like, he's not going to be running downfield trying to block someone. Whereas a guy like Bordner, a little more athletic, could probably so keep up with the playmakers.
All right,
if need be.
We'll see. I think starting tackles in the Michigan game is going to tell us an awful lot. As far as what you really have to be impressed about is the remedy of what they're doing to win games, the formula. And that is second in the nation in turnover margin. They haven't turned the ball over yet. Eventually that's going to happen. Of course. And it'll be at the worst time. 4th in penalties, which is 7 for 85 yards. That's 28.3 a game. So 4th in penalty yards a game. That's also awesome. So they're not committing penalties. Huge. They're not turning the ball over, and they've got one of the best punters in the nation.
Yeah. No kidding. 3 straight weeks and three straight balls down to the 1. It's like, oh, what the heck is this guy doing? No, he's phenomenal. If he's not in the league, I'd be shocked.
He should be drafted. So,
but I wouldn't be honestly, it wouldn't surprise me at one bit if he got drafted. But like you said, the zero turnovers is huge. They've done a really good job on emphasizing all throughout training camp and all throughout, I guess, spring camp too, of just how the Graciano's mantra is the ball is the program. Don't lose the ball, you won't lose the program, or something along those lines. I probably misinterpreted it a little bit, but yeah, they emphasize it big time. So the fact that they're doing it this well this early on, it's a good sign. On top of it, like penalty wise too, it's huge. They haven't committed
and they
many
committed a ton
any.
of stupid penalties last year.
I think. Yeah. Well, I think that again, that has a lot to do with a new coaching staff. You didn't have spring ball. The season was a season, then it wasn't a season, then it is a season. Your training camp was what, 25 days or something like that, and it was ridiculous last year. But I think it's a very disciplined team, and I think Schiano's got these guys moving in the right direction. And on top of that, you got a guy like Sean Gleason who also emphasizes how important it is to hold on to this ball. I forget what the exact statistic was, but Noah Vedral said it the other day. You hold on to the ball, I think, like 70% of the time throughout the season, and you win probably, I think it was 50 or 60% of your games. It was a weird stat, but it's definitely an interesting one. I have to look more into it.
Bowling. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
All right, back to, as we close up, let's get back to the matchup. So Rutgers has covered 3 of the last 4 versus Michigan. The last time they played at Michigan, we unfortunately kind of remember that. It was 52-0. They also lost to Michigan in 2016 in Chris Ash's first year, 78-0. So there's a lot of ugly Michigan results that you got to believe the Michigan fans, of course, remember, which is why there's some that believe that the result is going to be a little bit closer than that. So Michigan is Rutgers has only beaten Michigan once. We talked about that, but Rutgers is 5-2 against the spread in the 7 matchups with Michigan, and I kind of feel that's what's going to happen in this one. Again, it's about whatever. What is it? 20, 17, 18. It's at 20 now.
Wow, is that 18? Oh, I'm on ESPN. Okay. It says 20 currently, but maybe it changed.
I'm going to say I'm going to pick Rutgers in the game, but again, I think it'll be a game where I think it's in sight for a potential upset early fourth quarter, and then something happens, whether it's a turnover, a couple of late scores by Michigan, that kind of thing. But I'm going to take Rutgers to cover, and I'll see it's a pretty competitive game until some point in the fourth quarter.
I keep looking at this, and I do think Rutgers will be competitive early on. I think they'll give them a game. But in the end, I can't see them stopping this Michigan rushing attack. At 350 yards per game, it's Rutgers, like I said before, it's Rutgers' worst possible option to go against. Their rushing defense hasn't been good in year 1 under Schiano. Year 2, it's been better. But 515 yards of total offense for Michigan per game is ridiculous. It's a really tough. We didn't even talk about it. Aiden Hutchinson, the defensive end, the edge rusher, that you want to call him,
top 5 draft pick
for Michigan. There you go. And then number 1 on PFF right now for edge rushers. He's got 3.5 sacks. And then you're going against tackles that are.
We don't even
who
know
knows
who
the tackles are actually. Yeah, so that's the big issue.
By the way,
there.
have they been using? I have to know this. Is this a Gleason offense kind of thing? Because the tight ends, we were so optimistic about what was happening with the tight ends and the way it looked in the spring. And they've hit a couple of them. Nobody's dropped anything, but nobody's getting targets. It's like, okay, the only thing I'm thinking of is, well, maybe they're holding back for Big Ten football, or is this just the way Sean Gleason really runs his offense? Or is it they're using their tight ends to block and to help the offensive line? And until the offensive line proves that they can handle it themselves, then we'll be able to release the tight ends.
Yeah, I think the last one is that's pretty much it. It's just adding another tight end that can block, and then it helps get Noah Vedral a little more time to get that ball in the playmaker's hands. Like we said, the tackles haven't been great. They've been struggling. So adding that extra blocker is huge, and that's why a guy like Giovanni Haskins kind of dominates the snaps at tight end just because he's the best, probably arguably the best blocker of the group. Other than that, I don't know if they're the best route runners either. They're not really getting open at times, but what are you going to do? That's kind of just Gleason's offense from what I know. I know it's kind of called like that nub tight end for some people. I know he called it the nub tight end in Princeton, and it's kind of just that extra blocker, and
yeah,
so to speak. But going back to the game, 20-point spread. I think it'll be less than that going into the fourth, and then all of a sudden, I do think that they hit that 20 mark. Right now, I'm thinking like a 35-13 type of thing. I don't think this offense is going to be able to do much against Michigan's defense, and that's going to be where the struggle is. Maybe they can get it closer if they sneak like a special teams touchdown, like a Cruikshank, or hey, maybe even Youngblood.
But that's what they need. There's no question. That's if they're going to beat and pull off one of these big upsets against these big programs, Cruikshank has got to score a touchdown against one of those teams.
Yeah, and it doesn't even. I guess it doesn't even have to be a touchdown. He just needs to make some big plays on special teams and then go from there.
Yeah, I see. That's the thing. Following Michigan like I do, and I've said the one thing I'm not sure of yet with them is their defense. Now the defense is better. There's no question about it this season. But I don't know yet. Also, because Washington's offense in Week 1 against Montana was terrible. So then they come to Michigan. Under the lights, big crowd, and again, they struggled until late in the game, and then the next week, they scored like 50 points. So it took them a while to get going. So I don't know how good Michigan's defense is either based on the competition that they've played. So I think Rutgers could put up a few more than 13. I think they could put up about 20. I'm probably going to be more like 35-20-ish or 38 to 23-ish, that kind of thing. But I think we're pretty much, pretty close to agreeing. And look, the break that Rutgers has is no Ronnie Bell, so he's out for the year. And Cornelius Johnson, who was supposed to be their inevitable number one guy, is now back to being the number one guy. Whether Rutgers can cover Cornelius Johnson or not compared to Bell, I could see that. But again, what's their quarterback situation? That's going to be the big deal. I mean, if we don't see Renee out there 5 minutes before the game, when the TV broadcast pops up, and that's the one thing I want to see. I want to see Renee out there in uniform, and then talking about, hey, look who's going to play and make his first appearance for Rutgers.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, you have to kind of force them to use Cade McNamara and throw the ball, but it's a scary thought when you don't have arguably your number one corner.
That's true.
And then, like, on top of it, I know McNamara has only thrown probably about, I think it was 37 completions on the entire year so far. So he's been crazy accurate, but he's also not thrown a ton. So, I mean, see what happens. But he is one of the highest graded quarterbacks in the Big Ten. I think he's above, actually, C.J. Stroud at the moment.
When I look at this new Michigan approach, I actually think that McCarthy is going to end up being a better fit for their offense, the freshman. But and that's the reason, like you said, because McNamara, we saw in the game last year. I think he's more of that pro style, let's throw the ball 35, 40 times a game type of guy. I think he has got an opportunity to be a pro. But I think Michigan's offense in a couple of years will be better the way they're trying to run it now, as far as being more of a running offense again. That Harbaugh. See, this is what I thought when Harbaugh came to Michigan. This is what I thought they were going to do, because this is what he did at Stanford. We're going to get 4 or 5-star offensive linemen. We're going to run the hell out of the football. Maybe I'll get a blue chip quarterback. I'll have a really good defense, and that's how I'm going to win football games. I'm not going to win it by spreading it out and, shooting, throwing the ball 50 times. And I think he got away from that, because that's the way college football was going. And I think he tried to emulate that, and he got away with the success of what was Jim Harbaugh football. And I think they're doing that again. He brought in a completely young new staff, got rid of the old guys that weren't communicating with the young players, and they're that and all of a sudden the players are having fun again. I think it was a great move. And for any Rutgers fans that thinks, Michigan is, that's just, we've seen this before, they're overrated. No, they're not. I mean, this is a much better Michigan football team. No. This is a completely different team than I think that any team that Harbaugh has had since he's been there. And we'll find out on Saturday.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. I do like J.J. McCarthy a lot, though. He will eventually be the starter. I don't know when, but He's a heck of a quarterback. He can chuck it downfield. He hits like almost. I shouldn't compare him to Kyle Allen, but I guess he's kind of close to a Kyle Allen type. He's got that vertical arm. He hits the short to intermediate passing routes, and then on top of it, he can scramble.
He needs like a couple more years in getting bigger and stronger, growing the body.
Mm-hmm.
And when he can do that, boy, he could be a really scary potential NFL prospect.
That sounds like Gavin Wimsatt to me.
And I know we didn't talk about him on the show. And after last week, that's why we're not talking about him. Because if Vedral would have had another poor game, we would have been talking about it. I still think we'll see him at some point, maybe. But if Vedral keeps playing really well, maybe we don't see him at all because of the fact that we really barely saw Snyder last week against Delaware.
Yeah. I think eventually you'll see him in a little bit of garbage time just because you need to get the kid acclimated, and you could keep his red shirt with those 4 games now. So if you're up big or down big, it's kind of like, all right, you know what, kid, go out there, see what you can do with the 4th string offense, 3rd string.
But it all depends again what's happening later in the year. You know, how big the stakes and all that. And I'm glad you brought up, by the way, the thing about about the poor route running for the tight ends, because I didn't know whether or not it was a Vedral issue or it was a route running issue. The receivers weren't getting open, because when you see Vedral sitting there and he's not throwing the ball and then he's getting sacked or he's throwing the ball away, it's like, what's going on? Nobody can get open? Or, it was hard to figure out, but you had to, I guess, trust the coaching staff, obviously, that they know what you don't know. And I'm assuming it's a receiver problem, is that the guys, Melton seems to be the only guy that can get open on his own.
Yeah. And then, occasionally you'll see Cruikshank and Jones, but they haven't really used Jones that much. I think the first 2 games, Jones snapped, I want to say 25 to 30, something around there. And it's a little questionable, and it's like, all right, like he's a pretty good receiver. So it's like, what's going on here?
I'm not sure either.
But end of the day, back to the tight ends real quick. They have the 3 lowest passing grades on the team. So PFF obviously sees something too. They're not producing, they're not doing much, and I really do think it's route running at the end of the day, and they're mostly used as blockers.
Well, the one kid is just green anyway. He's going to need a couple of years before he actually. What was he? A basketball player, really? First, yeah. So it's going to take a while.
Yeah, he's intriguing though. He's got good size,
but it takes a while. It doesn't happen right away.
Yeah.
And we talked about Alamo in the preseason. I'm not seeing it. He was this big prospect, and I'm just not seeing it.
He struggled mightily against Syracuse. That was ugly. He in terms of blocking, he just couldn't block it much at all. And if he's your second best blocker, it's like
that's part of the problem.
So yeah, and then the blocking in general, between the run blocking of the entire offensive line, the tackles, like we said, we don't know, and now the tight ends. It's a scary factor against the Michigan defensive line. That's gonna probably tear them apart.
That's why whenever you hear about all these skill position players coming in, and like you were talking about Washington, and he had this great spring, and Jones, and it's like, okay, well, but where is it? I'm not seeing it, because the same thing happens in the pros. I'm sick of hearing about how great guys look in practice, or what the coaches say. Oh, this guy is going to be really good, or so. Well, I'm not seeing it. So I just think Rutgers they were a little overrated as far as the receivers coming into the season, and I sure hope that. You tell me. Do they have reinforcements on the way?
Yeah, in terms of skill guys, I think the skill guys are good now. I just don't think there's enough time to get them the ball. And when they do get that, when Vedral gets that pocket presence and enough time to hit these guys, you see it. Like, look at last week. He hit, 330 yards or something? So, if you give him protection, I think he has a chance to get it to the guys that are the skill playmaker dudes, and then let them kind of do their own thing. But it goes back to route running, too. I think guys like Cruikshank have to improve a little more. He was predominantly a kick return guy. Now he needs to take that next step and become a better receiver. I think Shameen Jones is I shouldn't say almost, but he's getting up there. He's getting close to that Bo Mountain level. I think if he stays another year, I think he could be that number 1 guy for them. But other than that, it's a lot of question marks. I think they brought in 3 receivers last year. Trying to think who it was exactly. Trying to pull it up. Carnell Davis, who's back with the team. after that whole summer incident. He's back. They actually lost Braden Fox to transfer already. Sean Munnerlin was supposed to be a tight end, is actually at receiver now. There's a couple of names that you might want to keep an eye on in the future. 2022, you mean? Amarion Brown, 4-star out of Florida. He's a very good player. He might be the skinniest recruit I've ever seen.
Okay.
He's a 4-star kid though. He chose Rutgers over like the Auburns, Florida States, all those guys. It's just he's going to need a couple years to pack on muscle. You put him out there, he might fold.
Well, look,
but yeah, it's going to be interesting. They also have Rashad Rochelle, who's technically a quarterback for his high school team, and goes to camps as a quarterback, but he's coming in as a receiver. They like his athleticism. There's a lot of speedsters, and that's what this offense is going to be based off of. As soon as Gleason gets his full lineup of guys, it's all going to be speed,
yeah,
and that
makes sense. Yeah.
That's what you want to do at today's world. I kind of hope it turns into I know fans don't want to hear it, and turn like an Oregon type offense, like no huddle, quick, let's keep going.
Look, if you're a powerhouse, or that's different, but when you're Rutgers, you'll take any offense. That's an Oregon offense. I'll take it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's fun to watch too. That's the best part,
especially when you can't
not just sitting there
at the level of the other big schools. You have to find other ways, and that's a perfect way. It's a perfect system.
Yeah, you can't teach speed, and at the end of the day, you can teach them the routes. You could teach them how to catch a little better.
Yeah, because like with Cruikshank, you never see him catching anything, like any curls. It's always like
nothing
behind the line of scrimmage. We're going to get him the ball. We're going to get him some screens, or it's just going to be an out pattern, a deep fly pattern, and we're going to truck it up and see if he can, run somebody. So it's a problem.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's kind of what they have to do now, though. They don't really have many other options.
Well, Brandon Sanders, that's the one guy that hopefully will be able to continue playing at the level that we have seen for a couple of spots early on. And
yeah, I know a lot of people hated on him. I shouldn't say hated on him, but didn't think he'd do much because he was dominant in the Patriot League. But it's still dominant. It's like. Yeah, at the end of the day, he's still playing decent competition. And what do you have, 600 yards or something, 5 touchdowns at the Patriot League last year, or your spring season, whatever it was.
And that might have been a lot based on, again, what kind of offense they were in.
I think he ranks one of the top reception holders in Bucknell history, which is also impressive.
Yes.
So, yeah, I like him a lot. I think he's going to be really good throughout the season. And then you get him for another year, too, which is huge.
Next year is the year that they're going to need a lot of these guys because Bo Melton's not coming back. Is he done with eligibility?
No, I don't think so. I don't think he does either way. So I think this is his last year.
Because I agree. Yeah. Even if he has an extra year, he's not coming back.
But it's going to be interesting to see who steps up between Sanders, Washington, Shameen Jones. Yeah, it's going to be and then do you get a new quarterback? Is Vedral coming back? Who the hell knows?
I guess it depends on how well he plays. Because if he leads the team to a bowl and a big upset win, then hey, I'd even start him next year. Give him one more year. But if they don't go to a bowl, they don't knock off a big time team, it's Wimsatt. It's his team next year.
Yeah, I totally agree with you right there. Nobody's going to stand
for anything less. So.
No,
I would think at that point, it'll be interesting what Vedral does. I would guess if he's that much into it, he might stay. He might just say, okay, I'll stay. I'm loyal to the program, and if they need me, I'm here.
Based on what we've talked to him, he said he wants to keep playing as long as he can. I think it's kind of clear he's not going to make the pros. Sure. But so I mean, if he could get that extra year, and I think he's going to take it as long as they allow him, and it could just be as a backup role for a Wimsatt, and could just be like a little. And he wants to get into coaching anyway.
Yes.
So it could be the start of a coaching career as like a player coach type thing. And then I really do think that he loves this team. He loves the coaching staff. I think you could see him on the staff as like a GA or a QC eventually or something like that. There's all kinds of roles they throw out now.
So. If that's what he wants to do, then that's perfect place for him to start.
Heck of a start. I mean, working for Gleason and Shiano. I mean,
quarterback coach in a couple of years. Daxton Hill is the one guy to keep an eye on at Michigan, by the way. He's one of the top safeties in the country, and John Ross is their top linebacker. But and this is the reason why as we close up here, is the reason why I'm still not sure about Michigan's defense is that a lot of the Josh Uches and I mean, there's been a Gary was a few years ago. You mentioned Hutchinson, but there have been some really good players that have left the program over the last few years on defense. They do not have a lot of stars on defense like they had just a few years ago. And that's why I think a lot of Michigan fans were upset, because they had so many good players, talented players that they didn't take advantage of. That's not the way they are now.
Yeah.
Now, it doesn't mean that, again, that they're not a good defense. It just means that the star power, the pro prospects are limited right now. It doesn't mean that in a couple of years, some of them that are young are going to develop into those guys. But the point is that just not quite sure about, so don't look at this. Hutchinson, Hill, Ross. Those are the top three guys, playmakers, if you will. Other than that, I don't think that there's anybody else that Rutgers needs to say, hey, we got to take care of that guy or that guy. And it's going to be hopefully a lot of fun watching this football game. I certainly hope it is. I hope it's competitive into the second half, because that's the one thing that would really be a downer if something happened, like they got behind 28-0 and turned the ball over with 2 pick sixes or something like that, and that would be a disaster.
And I'd actually argue there's 2 more names to watch out for, because Harbaugh likes to play these stupid mind games. I think he's going to throw these 2 New Jersey guys out there. He's going to throw David Ajabu at linebacker, former Blair Academy. He's played a little bit. Actually played a lot. But he's like in and out of the starting lineup. But I could see him just putting him in the lineup just to get that New Jersey type, like, hey, like, this is Rutgers. Like, I'm going to show them like what they're missing. And then Brad Hawkins at safety out of Camden originally. He's a very good prospect. I do think he's going to do some kind of mind games. And these 2 dudes are going to have I shouldn't say a chip on their shoulder, but something similar to that, because they did get offered by Rutgers. They had a chance to go to Rutgers, but being New Jersey, playing a New Jersey team, it's more like, all right, that's type it up a little bit.
I agree.
So,
okay, good points. Yeah. All right, so that's going to wrap it up. What do you're going to have the post-game show. How long after the game?
It's usually depends on the game. If they win, there's usually like a 30-minute span where they're in the locker room celebrating and all that.
But this week it'll be 5 minutes after, right?
Yeah. Oh, you never know. I'm not going to say it, but you're probably right.
All right, sounds good. And that is where can we find the post-game show?
Right on Rutgers.rivals.com, aka the Night Report. We'll have it on our YouTube page. We'll have it on the front page. We'll have it on our message boards. Most popular message board on Rutgers message board on the web.
Great distinction.
So, yeah,
absolutely.
Got to shout it out a little bit. Nice little plug.
And by the way, we'll do this again for sure. And it's a lot's going to depend on how the team fares. Because again, Ohio State and Michigan State are coming up in the next couple of weeks. So if anything crazy happens on Saturday in a positive way, then maybe it's a lot sooner. But we'll definitely have you on at some point over the next few weeks. We really like to have you back.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Greg. I'm always available. I'm always down to join this too. This is great.
Thanks a lot, Rich, and best of luck. And go Rutgers.